And now it's time for Blossoms of My Life Radio with your host, Ramona Trevino. Ramona is a teacher, a pastor, a 3-time author, and radio host since February 2018, helping people share their But God moment and helping people see and be the blossoms in life. This program is a production and sponsored by Blossoms of My Life Radio Ministry and listeners like you. Now here's Ramona.
Today's guest is Matthew Whittington. Matthew, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ramona. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, for our listeners, I have worked with Shannon it's been a couple years now, I think, and Shannon helped bring life to my first book, Free at Last, The Struggle to Be Good Enough. And then she helped me with my second book, Blossoms of My Life. And so I'm very grateful for your wife, Shannon.
Well, that makes two of us.
And so I was really excited when I started seeing her post about your new journey and your book, Matthew. And so I wanted to give you a platform to be able to talk about your book.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about it.
So the name of your book is?
The name of my book is Forgiven.
That's a really powerful title.
I think it invokes a very powerful emotional message.
Yes. So why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of glimpse into your book?
Sure. As a child growing up, myself and my two younger siblings grew up with my mother was addicted to alcohol. My mother was a pretty severe alcoholic to the point where we're not talking 1 or 2 drinks a night. We're talking extreme inebriation to the point where while she was in the home, she really wasn't present. And so it was really like growing up with like 1.5 parents. So the purpose of the book and why I started writing, my mother died a couple of years ago on May 1st of 2017 from complications of alcoholism. She never got recovery. She drank all the way up to the time of her death. And growing up, I harbored a lot of anger and resentment, as I'm sure many people like me do at that age, because when you're a child, you don't really understand addiction. It's a really adult topic. It's very complicated, and it's hard for a mind that's young and developing to understand it and be sympathetic about it. So naturally, I had a lot of anger and resentment, frustrations, a lot of these negative emotions as a child that aren't really healthy and kind of stunt development. And the funny thing about those emotions, and it's not really funny, but you know, if you hold on to all these emotions all your life, and these are the emotions that are feeding your soul and feeding how you are as a person, you can't sustain on that, and eventually you go bankrupt in your own emotional health. You can't sustain like that. What you do is you isolate from the person who hurt you, the person who created the trauma, and that spreads once you run out of fuel for that person to other people. And so I really became a very unpleasant person. I really didn't like people at all. I tended to only see the things that were bad or not redeeming in people. And I really was, frankly, just an awful person, I thought. And I wasn't happy with myself. I isolated myself from everyone and everyone I loved. And, that took a toll. I considered at one point taking my own life.
Yep.
And at that time, I knew it was time to make some changes. I just didn't know how to forgive. And so when my mother died, I was angry at her for dying. I was angry at her for dying because there she was. She hurt our family again.
Right.
And my dad is in poor health, very poor health. He's had cancer several times. He has many medical issues. And I really felt that, while she was an alcoholic, at least she was someone there to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that with her death, my father's would soon follow. And I was just scared. And so for about a year, I really didn't face her death. I really didn't mourn my mother. I knew I needed to forgive. I would even tell people that loved me and cared about me. They would say, you need to forgive your mom. And I would say, I know you're right. I just don't know how. I just don't know how. My wife and I, about the time of my mother's death, were establishing a nonprofit. The nonprofit is called Books by Vets.
Wonderful work. I was just going to say wonderful work too.
Yeah. So the mission of that nonprofit, many veterans suffer through PTSD. And it's well known that, the media talks about 22 veterans a day take their lives through suicide because of their PTSD. And we have found that many people feel better after sharing their stories, or at least even if they don't share it publicly, they write it down. They get it off their chest. It's not like they have to talk about it, but they can write about it.
Mm-hmm.
And through our mission, I figured maybe the best way for me to heal from the trauma of growing up with an alcoholic parent and not knowing how to forgive is I would write it down. And that's how this book started. I was initially just writing like a journal.
Yep.
Like I would get a notebook out and I would just write down what I was feeling that day. And so, it was helping. Well, what I did next was pretty impactful. I met a person by the name of Mac Mullings, who's in radio here where I'm at in Oklahoma City. And he has a show on the weekends called Rise Above Radio where he talks about recovery from addiction.
Mm.
Now, I am myself not an addict, but he is, and we're good friends. And because he supported our nonprofit, I paid it forward. I listened to his show. I supported him, and I began listening. And he had a guest on who his name was Brian Anderson. And he asked Brian, "What's your biggest regret?" And Brian Anderson says, "I regret the harm I did my family through my addiction." And Ramona, at that moment, when I was listening to the radio, I was driving my car. And I pulled my car over, and I started crying. And I'm not talking like a little misty eye. I was bawling, like ugly crying.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to imagine that my mother, who never said she was sorry to me in person, may have felt regret about what her addiction did to our family.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I allowed myself to be vulnerable and believe that she may have felt regret about that, which allowed me to be vulnerable. And what I did, since I was writing the journal already, I said, I need more information because, what I've learned about addiction is many people who have that level of addiction where they have to medicate every single day.
Mm-hmm.
They do so because there's trauma in their life.
Yes.
Like they had something that was very bad that happened to them. Whether it be, like a sexual assault or a divorce or a loss of someone you love or some sort of loss or trauma. And so I said, I need more information. So I started calling people who were close to my mother before I was born, back to the roots of her addiction. And what I found was quite stunning. My mother had a very, very powerful why, and it changed my life. In the snap of a finger, I was able to just say, okay, I get it. I get why you chose alcohol to medicate yourself. And rather than being angry and hateful and resentful, I was able to be empathetic and understanding and loving for the first time in my life towards my mother, and it changed my life. And I decided that my story was powerful enough to share with the world, and that's why this book was born.
Praise God, because that's powerful, because what happens at that moment, like when you pull over and, you had to weep, it's kind of like, sometimes I think about like an onion that has the different layers that has to get peeled, it's kind of, it needed to happen. Like there had to be some kind of a blossom that had to come out, and those things had to be peeled off in order to get to the core of where everything and all the hurts were coming from for you. And, and the healing that you're starting to take, because it's a journey, it'll still be going on.
Yeah.
It's important because God also wants your family to be able to have the man that you are supposed to be. And without that, that blocking that you were experiencing, now that can now blossom into even more, because that love will now start to overflow.
That's a fantastic point, Ramona, and you are absolutely correct. What it really did for the people who are still alive and around me is, I've asked my wife to, usually when we're doing an interview, my wife will take over at this part, and she'll kind of do like a snapshot of like 5 years ago and a snapshot of now. Like how drastic is the difference? Mm-hmm. So whereas before I may have been kind of bitter and kind of, I'm pretty hard on myself. I would say I was kind of an ugly person to people. And what has happened now is I look for the redeeming qualities in people. Mm-hmm. Even people who in their own lives feel like they're falling short or they have some work to do. I look for ways to build them up. I look for ways to add value to their lives. And I look for ways to say, what you're doing is powerful, it's awesome, it's brave, and I really admire you for it. And even people who on the surface may look like they're flawed people, mm-hmm. because underneath everybody's going through something.
Yes.
Not all wounds bleed.
Yep.
You can't see everybody's pain and everybody's hurt, and to give people benefit of the doubt and give them the love has really been a game changer. it's a game changer. What
Right.
it does, and the most obvious example I have personally is at work. So I go to work and, rather than being competitive and kind of like, I don't know, like catty, like,
Mm-hmm.
like I can be with someone who's a peer, like, man, you are really awesome at what you do. And I really, I can really learn some things from you and whatnot. And it's amazing how their demeanor towards me changes. And it's infectious. It goes to all aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm. And that, your mom, that's a part of your mom that's now coming out. It's that part that she was never able to grasp onto that place to where she could forgive, right? And forgive herself for the things that had happened in her life, and she did the best that she could.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to do. She couldn't live any other way. She didn't know how to. She didn't have, the resources that, some of us have today. And that's a hard thing for a lot of, people in the world is they feel lost and alone and they start to shelter themselves and they literally are lost and alone. And, that's where we hope that things like your book can get into their hands, or maybe they, hear the radio show or different things in different avenues that we can use in order to give them just a little bit of glimpse of hope.
Exactly.
They're real life stories. These are real lives that are being affected. It's true story. It's not made up.
The most difficult part of writing this book, Ramona, I always thought like it would be like impossible to forgive my mom. I thought I would die never having forgiven her. But what is pretty amazing is once I learned, like I was able to accept addiction and how people struggle with it and explain it to me and and just be open-minded and listen. Forgiving her was actually pretty easy. The hard part then became forgiving myself.
Oh yes, I went through that too.
Myself was far more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because here I was, I isolated my mom. If your listeners could envision, when you hold on to resentment for somebody, you hold on to a grudge.
Mm-hmm.
What you think you're doing, you think you're like putting them in a little timeout in your mind. You think you're punishing them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
What you are in fact doing is you're putting your own self in like a little cage in a little jail cell where you are the prisoner.
Yeah.
You are the prisoner in your own mind. That person may not know that you hold this grudge or whatever. And so when you decide that, you know what, I'm just going to accept this and forgive people, what you are really doing is you're setting the prisoner free, and the prisoner is you.
Yep. Yep. And that was the hardest thing for me because of everything. I went through the alcohol and everything to mask. And that was part of my book and my journey is I didn't understand why did I go this route, and kind of find out, there was things, I had been raped. I had, molested by, family member. And it's like, well, okay. So I just tried to mask all those things with alcohol because I couldn't stand it. I didn't know what else to do. In those days, I think I was 10 years old and I remember my mom and dad took me to the doctors. They didn't know why I was always crying. They didn't understand why I was always in my room. I was always sad. And they said, oh, I think she has an ulcer. Well, Matthew, today's world, if you had a 10-year-old child that goes to the doctors and they say she has an ulcer, isn't that like a big red flag? Like something happened and they didn't understand, like, well, what could have happened to her? Yeah. And it was just squashed and buried inside. And I thank God that he took me out of that mess. And yes, I had to forgive myself because my daughters, were young and I was going and struggling through depression and, all the different things that I had to try to struggle through trying to come out of that vicious cycle, that mess, and, I thank God that they're okay. And, that they're able to see that my life has transpired to a different place and that I can go out and help people now, like what you're trying to do. Now I can say to someone, I know exactly how you feel that you don't want to get up out of that bed.
Yeah.
I know what that's like. I know how you feel like you don't want to go to work, you don't want to eat, and you'd rather die. I know that feeling oh so well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yep. And forgiveness is a key, forgiveness is, and yes, ourselves, I was grateful yesterday. I was interviewing a couple people that I was just blown away. One was in California and one was in Jacksonville, Florida. Both of them young men sentenced to life in prison, each one for crimes that they did. Right. And each of them now are pastors. And, they thought to themselves they would never amount to anything, and who would forgive me for that ultimate crime?
Right.
And each of them across the United States, I was just blown away that they were both interviewed on the same day. Both of them had a story of how the redemption and how the forgiveness was important. They had to understand, where the forgiveness came from, and that we do have the internal ability to forgive.
Let's take a quick break.
Do you sometimes wonder how or where you can look for uplifting stories? Well, here in Blossoms of My Life, we have many amazing guests that share their journey. Some of them are unbelievable, where you'd wonder, how did they even make it through that? And we're honored to be able to have these individuals on our show, people that have a love for God, and they just want to share their stories to uplift other people. I know it was so we would love for you to join us on this journey with sharing stories. We have shows recorded from 2018 that we're trying to get those legacy shows on our YouTube platform and Spotify, and so that'll be coming up soon. And we are a 501(c)(3), and so if you'd like to support us, and you're subscribing to us and sharing and liking our channels goes a long way. Please like, subscribe, and share on Spotify and YouTube. Blossoms of My Life with Ramona Trevino. Thank you, and God bless you.
Yeah, a great way to picture it. If you're holding on to something, like you just can't let go of something that's hurt you, well, your hands are full of this hate and discontent. Imagine something that's out in front of you that you want, like a happy place. You just want to reach out and wrap your arms around your happiness. How can you do that if your hands are full of the negative stuff?
Yep.
You have to let go of that stuff. You have to let go if you want to reach out and embrace the positives in a happy life. It's necessary.
Yep.
There's no way around it.
Yep. And life's going to always have those little bumps and roads, down the road. But, the one thing is that when you have your heart ready and your heart is able to forgive, you look at things. I bet you feel like you just had these glasses on, and then all of a sudden they were taken off and you can see clearly.
Yeah.
It's like you see everybody in a different way.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's a complete paradigm shift.
It's wonderful. I'm very grateful when those kinds of things can happen, because when people have their glasses on, their dark shades where they can't see goodness in things. And you can tell, you run into people that are just, you want to say, well, they're just so grumpy all the time, and now, and you probably can attest to this, now when I meet someone, it kind of is like, well, I wonder what happened to them, Lord, because I know this isn't how they really want to be. I know that
when I encounter those people, I just try to stay positive and try to find the things in them that are, that need to be brought out.
Mm-hmm. The good things.
This person sees these things in me, and at least this person gets that, I have something to give.
Yep, because everybody has something to give. So do you have, where could people find your book?
So right now the book is available on Amazon.
Okay.
You can go to Amazon and you can search Forgiven with my name, Matthew Whittington. There's been a few books named Forgiven. So you just search Forgiven, Matthew Whittington. It'll come up. It's a black and white trim on the cover, and there's a guy sitting on a stool with his head in his hands. That's me.
Okay. I love the pictures, by the way.
So,
the picture,
you can get it in
the cover.
Paperback or Kindle.
Okay. And that's on Amazon. And then I'm sure it'll probably get on Barnes & Noble too pretty soon, right?
So I'm in contact with Barnes & Noble. They have my book.
Oh, good.
I'm working here in Oklahoma City. I'm doing a book signing in May.
Oh, good.
That doesn't help your California listeners.
No. But...
what I have done, though, is they're going to take my book. It's being submitted to their corporate office to be considered for nationwide.
Oh, good. Well, yeah. And I'm sure people could probably reach out to you. I know you're on Facebook, and maybe if they wanted to order a copy from you, they could get it signed, right?
They could. You could find me on Facebook, Matthew Whittington. You can message me and say, you know what, I'd love to have a signed copy. And for those people, I'll send you a link for my PayPal. You don't need a PayPal account, just a debit card, and I'll send you a signed copy.
Good. And then let's see, what else? I wanted to talk. We have about 5 minutes or so. Let's talk
a little. Talk about one thing about the book sale.
Yes.
That I think is important for your listeners.
Okay.
As well. 100% of the profits made from the book, 100%, every single nickel that is earned from book sales that comes to me I'm not taking that money. It goes into a foundation I'm launching called the Janet Whittington Foundation, and that's my mother, Janet Whittington. And with those monies, I am donating 100% of what I would have earned to child advocacy causes and people who need help with recovery.
Wow,
100%.
that's awesome. So you just got this started?
I've announced it here locally to the media. I'm a government worker, so I've had to save some money back from the shutdown.
Yeah, that was awful.
To actually get with the IRS and pay the fees and stuff to be officially recognized. I haven't spent any of that money. It's sitting in a savings account. And as soon as the foundation is, paid for through the government and I'm legitimized, it's going to go into there. And I'm going to start giving that money to charities. I'm not accepting that money.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good. And that's all going to be in honor of your mother. And so that'll be your nonprofit, right?
In honor of my mother, I'm doing this to help. The first couple of donations I've already arranged are going to children who, neighborhood outreach and stuff like that. I hope I sell a whole lot of books, Ramona.
Oh, I hope you do too.
Because recovery is not easy and it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And so I would love to help scholarships and people that want that change in their life.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So then eventually I imagine you would have your own website.
Yeah, I've talked to my wife. We've looked at a website and some domain names that hasn't been purchased yet. We're still in the early phases here.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is exciting.
Absolutely. I'll have a website, I'll have a Facebook page and all that kind of stuff.
This is exciting. I'm really excited for you, both of you. I wanted to give you...
it's the most important thing
that
has come from this book. I really didn't want, what my fear was at first, look, I don't want people saying, you're kind of capitalizing off your mother's addiction and death. That's the last thing I wanted. I was going to donate the money the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is when I went to go decide who to donate to, it was really hard to make that decision. And a few of the people that I was going to donate to, their businesses went out of business. And I said, what's more reliable than, I'll just count on myself and I'll just divvy up money as people need it.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. And I remember Shannon telling me that in Oklahoma, it's not as difficult as it is in California to start a foundation. So
it's very, very easy. It's just a matter of money.
I'm so excited for you. That's an awesome thing that you're going to be doing. I know the children will be able to do it, and maybe there'll be some opportunities that, to go and speak at some of these children's foundations. You'd be surprised, even like group homes, kids that are in group homes because they have to be removed from homes and families that, their parents can't take care of them because of addiction, all those types of things. Those are going to be good resources for you. So I'm excited. Yes. That's a really good thing.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. We have about, maybe 4 minutes or so. Do you want to talk a little bit about the work you do with the vets with Shannon?
Yeah, we could do that. So it was 2016-17. We were looking for a way to use Shannon's business. Now, my wife, Shannon Whittington, has a business called Creative Literary Consultants, where she helps people from basically the brainstorming portion of writing all the way to book sales. That's her business. And we were saying, how can we give back to people? Let's also do some charitable work. Mm-hmm. Around that time, I was cleaning the attic in our house, and I came across a shoebox full of letters my dad had written me. Now, my dad was drafted in Vietnam and served in some of the most violent years. He was in some pretty bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And the whole time growing up, I was always asking him, Dad, tell me about this. Tell me about this. I want to hear about it. He would never talk about it. He would never talk about his experience in Vietnam. Well, I myself am a Marine. So years later, when my unit was on call to deploy somewhere, I was on the phone with my dad, and I was telling him I was scared, and I really didn't know what to expect. And he, as dads do, was very, reassuring. And what he did is he typed out 2 stories of things that he had gone through in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. He couldn't speak about it. He still can't. But what he did is he typed it out and sent it to me. So I came across these things that I had had in shoebox for years. And I pulled them out and on the floor, and I'm reading them. And I said, Shannon, come read this. And she's reading it. And I'm like, and then I explained to her what I just told you and your audience. It's like, look, he couldn't talk about this. Mm-hmm. But maybe he got some healing from writing it down.
Yep.
And so we launched Books by Vets.
It's awesome.
Where we help veterans heal through the process of writing.
It's amazing what you guys are doing, too.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of like one of the examples.
Yep. Yes.
Because I'm a Marine veteran, though my book is not about my military service. It's in there, but it's not about that.
Yep.
I am a veteran, and so I have healed through my writing.
Absolutely. And I think writing's important for a lot of different people in the healing process. And sometimes people don't realize, like, if they just take a pencil and a paper and just write, some people sketch, some people draw, and some people write, and it's beautiful, everything that you guys are doing over there. We're just getting about close to the end of our show. Is there any last comments that you'd like to make?
No, I'm very thankful for people that want to hear about my story. It was very difficult to write. I'm very transparent in the maybe one of the most difficult parts was the transparency and reliving some of the trauma in order to tell the story to the audience. Mm-hmm. Because in the first part of the book, I had to kind of paint a picture of that's kind of unflattering of what it's like to grow up with an alcoholic. Yep. Even though I'd already forgiven her, I had to write about that in order for a reader to understand the difficulties I had.
Right.
So, that stuff was difficult and challenging, but very healing. And I encourage anybody that's been through something like that to consider writing it down.
And don't be afraid. I know that it's hard to trust a lot of people, and you think you want to hide behind a closet door, or, you don't want people to see what really goes on when you leave the house and things like that. Because I know I've been there, done that. But it's an important step and part of your healing. So thank you, Matthew, for everything.
Ramona. Here's how important it is. If I can just share one number with the audience real quick. According to the National Association for Children of Addiction, that's a nonprofit out on the East Coast, they help children of addiction. 1 in 4 children right now are in a home with at least one parent addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Wow.
1 in 4. That is 18.25 million children right now. It is absolutely imperative in this current state of our country where addiction is such a big issue for children to understand that they're not alone and that there is a way to have their voices heard. And that was why it was so important for me to write this, is for those children.
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea. 1 in 4 is huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
At least one parent.
Wow. All right. Well, we're getting to the end. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to say a quick prayer over your book and your ministry. That's what I'm going to call it. You're with the Janet Whittington Foundation. If you're okay with that, Matthew?
Yeah, go ahead, Ramona.
Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you for Matthew. I thank you for Shannon. She's a blessing, has always been, Lord. But Matthew, right now, I just want to thank you for the enlightenment that you've given him with his book, Forgiven, Lord. I thank you for the work that you're doing through him. I thank you for his foundation, the Janet Whittington Foundation. And I just ask, Lord, that you continue to bless him, Lord. Open up doors of opportunities for him. Provide resources where resources are needed. Sell books, Lord, where they need to be sold. Put them in the hands of those that need healing, Lord. And just, Lord, I thank you for what he's doing for the children across America that are living with an alcoholic or drug addicted parent, Lord. I thank you, and I pray all this in your precious name. Amen. Matthew, thank you.
You bet. Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Blossoms of My Life Radio.
God bless you. We are a nonprofit, 501(c). If you'd like to support our ministry or send in a donation, you can send that to 1760 Airline Highway, box number 103, Hollister, California, 95023. You can address that to Blossoms of My Life Ministries or in care of Ramona Trevino. Thank you.
Her website is the letter M, dauntless.org. That's iamdauntless.org. Her email is ramona@blossomsofmylife.org. That's ramona@blossomsofmylife.org. This program is a production and sponsored by Blossoms of My Life Radio Ministry and through listeners like you. And in closing, we just want to remind you to remember to see and be a blossom in someone's life.